Hello and welcome to the session. So let's continue our journey for core Java concepts and some hands-on practice. So let's start with a topic called as string. String is a very interesting topic, and for our day-to-day programming, we or normally use strings and numbers. So what is a string? A string is basically, as it is said, immutable sequence of Unicode characters. So there are two things here: immutable and Unicode. So let us see what is immutable and what is mutable. So immutable means once something is assigned into the memory, that content will remain as it is. It will not change. You cannot change the content. And Unicode means, so Unicode is basically the range of characters which is supported in Java. So in the earlier generation it was only supporting, let's say, English language, but then now it has to support multiple languages, for example Japanese, for example French and Spanish and all. So it has some other characters which are non-English characters. So we will see an example of Unicode characters also. Second is string class is encapsulated under this java.lang package. So we will have a separate discussion on what is a package also. Uh, Immutable or final class means that once an object is created, we cannot change its content in the memory. Okay, so let's see this with an example here. So whenever your program is loaded into the memory, you have something called as heap memory. Okay, so for your program, let's say 1 MB memory will be assigned. So out of that, the memory is divided into two things. One is called as the core part, that is the heap memory, and we have something called as a string pool memory. String pool. So whenever you declare any string, let's say string name equal to London, then n1 equal to London, then the memory will be assigned in the string pool section and not from the heap section. If you see the other part, that is the heap section. Now let's see another one. So string n2 equal to Paris, which is correct, and string n3 is equal to Paris. So p is small. So technically these are the different strings. These are not these are case sensitive. So it will be given a separate location. Now what happens if you see string n4 equal to n3? So the JVM will see that both the contents are same. Basically address of both is same. So the n4 is also pointing to this location. Now now let's see another thing. So now let's say n1 string, I have used it here. Now I am assigning it a different value. Okay, so what will happen is n1, so it's a different string, so a separate location and a separate memory address will be assigned to n1, and this memory which was earlier utilized, this memory will be kind of a dead memory, or it will you cannot change its content and you don't have any pointer to that. So you n1 is basically using this memory location and continuing. Now this could be a problem. uh, let's say your program is heavily using lot of strings, and most of the time you are changing or you are assigning different value to a variable. Now what happens is this has a limit. Let's say out of 1 MB of memory, let's say 0.5 MB of memory will be assigned to string pool, but then that is also having some limit. So that might also get exceeded at some point of time. So there are mechanisms in place how to reutilize this kind of a memory, but then so often if your program is using multiple memory statements, memory which is not reutilizing the memory, then your program might become slow, or it might give a lot of memory leakage issue and so on. So it is a good practice that uh, we should not use uh, assign different values to the same string variable again and again. Other we have other mechanism. We have something called as string buffer class. We have something called as a string builder class. So that can be utilized. Now, so memory full issue we have seen, and kind of a dead memory. So if this n1 is using Delhi, then this memory will be kind of a dead memory. So one of the other solution for that is you initialize the string. If you see, the left hand side is declaration and right hand side is initialization. So what you say, string n5 equal to new string, and here you put the value. So in this case, what happens is this is basically an object creation. What is a class, what is an object, that also we'll see in the upcoming session. But then string is a ready-made class. As I said here, it is available in the java.lang package. So how do you create an object, how do you create an instance of the object? You use this new keyword. So new string and some value here. In this case, what will happen is this will be considered as an object. Okay, right hand side will be considered as an object, and when it is an object, the memory is not from string pool, it is from the core heap part. And once you don't want this object, you can do something called as a garbage collector. That is a very good feature in Java. With that feature, the memory which is not utilized, or which is, which will not be used for a longer time and so on, that can be optimized, that can be reutilized for some other purposes. So that is what we can do a workaround. So string is a class. So a string class has this important methods which we can use for our day-to-day purposes. So character add, concat. So concatenation is basically adding another string to current string. Equals comparing comparing two strings. Equals ignore case. Obviously length, contains, substring, split, and some other things. So let's see an example here. So if you see this name Tyler, so if you can directly print it, this is how you get the length, character at 0th index. So as I said earlier, string is a collection of different characters. So the character at 0 will be capital T. Equals, so it will compare the two strings. So remember, equals is basically case sensitive. Equals ignore case will basically ignore the case. Now contains AY, so it will check whether the string contains AY character. So if it is a repetition of those characters, it will give you, it will match the first time and it will say it contains. Now substring, so you can have a cut or a part of the string, let's say 1 to 4. So this will be starting index and this will be ending index -1. If you want to split the string, we have a ready-made method here. So let's say if I want to split the string by Y character, so so once you split a string, that result will be a string array. Okay, a string array. So how many times it has split it? So those many number of uh, elements will be present in the resulting array. Okay, so in this case I'm splitting by Y character, so it will be TA, and then Y will be skipped, and LOR. So the resulting string array will have two elements, one is TA, one is LOR. Now how do you access it? So you can say you can use by index. So after split 0, after split 1, uppercase, lowercase, straightforward. Concat means it will add this particular string at the end of this string. Okay, so let's run it. Right, so you can see this is the expected output. Now let's see this Unicode thing. So as we have discussed, so Unicode basically supports multiple other characters apart from the English characters and the normal special characters. So these are all the other special characters. If you see this French, if you see this Spanish, if you see this Japanese and maybe Chinese and multiple characters. Nowadays, if you type emojis when you're chatting something, so that emoji is also one of the Unicode character. So let me just run it. Right, so if you see, it can process the special characters or Unicode characters, which are not English characters. Okay, and so on. So a question here, what is the difference between equals method and equal to operator? So might be an interview question. So when you say equal to, that means it is basically comparing the values, okay, and comparing basically some kind of a number, or let's say Boolean. So when you say A and int B, and if you want to compare the value of A and B, you say equal to. Now you here you are comparing some kind of a number. Now if you want to compare the string, so basically you want to compare the content of the string. So string A equal to London and string B equal to Mumbai. So this is how you compare using equals method. You compare the content of the string and not the values or not the address. In equal to you can compare the address or the numbers. So in this earlier case, if I say when I say n1 and n2, and now if I say n1 dot equals n2, so it will give you true or false. And now and if I say n1 equal to n2, so basically it is not comparing the content, it will basically compare the address of n1 and n2. So obviously the address are different here, so it will be false. Same thing here. So if you see here, n4 is n4 is n3, or n4 is pointing to the same location where n3 is pointing. Now in this case, if I say n4 equal to n3, then it will be true because the address of both will be same, and obviously n4 dot equals n3, so basically the content is also same, so it will be true only. Right. So now let's see the control statements. So in our day-to-day programming, we might need to do some conditional check, like if this is the case, then do this. If this is the case, then do this, else do this, and so on. So we have something called as if statement in Java. So if some condition, else something. If some condition, else some other condition, else some other condition, and so on. And we can have nested if also. So let's say if this condition, then do something special, and inside that also you can do something special. So let's see with some examples. We will see control, we will see switch case statement, default statement, default keyword, break and continue. Right. So let's see the control statement. So this is a very simple if else condition. So if this condition is matching, then do this, otherwise do this. So obviously those has to be inside the brackets. So if you see if condition is inside the bracket, now remember you can ignore this also. Okay, you can write simple if statement also, that is also fine, without an else statement. Okay, or you can do like this also, you can have if statement and corresponding else statement. But if you simply put the else statement, that is not allowed. For else statement you should have if statement, which is mandatory. This is a simple thing. So if else if condition, so if some condition, otherwise some condition, otherwise some condition, otherwise some condition, and finally else statement. Remember here once again, else is not mandatory. Okay, but the at least one if is mandatory. So in this case, if the marks is 65, then it is checking whether the marks is more than 80. So it is not more than 80. Then it will come to this check. So marks is more than 65, 60. So yes, it is correct. So it will print first class. And then what will happen is it will not go inside the other statements, and it will just come out on this line, basically. Nested if else case. So let's say I have this income, right? So 50,000 something. So my income is more than 40,000, then I will have to check multiple conditions. So that is, if this condition is matching, then come inside and do couple of other validation. If the income is not more than 40,000, you say no tax. Or if the income is more than 40,000, then there are multiple things. So you can say income is taxable, and still what is the percentage of income tax. So if the income is more than 50,000, then you have 40% tax, otherwise you have 20% tax. So a simple example, this is a simple example for nested if else. Let's just run it. Right, so yeah, this is as expected. Now let's see this switch case statement. Now switch case statement is kind of an extension of if else condition, where let's say if you want to compare, now we have seen here there are multiple else if condition, right? So this sometimes may not be an elegant coding practice or because of some other reason. Let's see switch case statement. So switch case statement, what happens is we just write one condition here, one condition check here, which is basically a switch. So I'm switching on some kind of a string here. I'm switching on destination city. So now how switch works is it will check the condition, it will match basically individual case. So if you see here, the city is destination city is Paris. So if it is case London, so it will check whether the Paris is equal to London, basically string comparison. Okay, so that is not matching, fine, it will go to the next case. Okay, it is matching here, so it will print flight departs from 1500 hours and so on. Now there's also a statement called as a break statement. So what is a break statement? So break statement will actually help you to come out of the immediate condition check or immediate loop or immediate something. So what is break statement doing here? If you do not put break statement, what happens is it will still continue going on checking the other cases. But now what you want is you want to check with the exact match, and if the match is found, and then you just say break. So what will happen when you say break? It will just immediately come out of the it will come out of the initial the immediate condition check statement. So what is the what is the immediate condition check statement? This is the switch condition. So it will come on this line. So that is why you should use break in each case statement. That may not be true always. Let's say this example. So now my case is Oxford, Dallas, or Barcelona. So for all these three cases, I just want to execute uh, a common set of statements. Okay, so I will say flight schedule is not available and so on. Now what is this default? So let's say if none of the cases matching, then you want to do certain set of actions, certain set of statements. Let's say if the city name is not present in this list, you say no flights found, or you can stop the program execution by throwing an exception and so on. So this is basically a simple switch case statement. Remember to use break statement appropriately for every applicable case statement. Right, so let's just run it. Right, so if the city is Paris, so that is why it said like this. So let me just make the city as, let's say, Barcelona, and run it again. So for Barcelona, the matching statement is flight schedule not available. Right, flight schedule not available. Let me just put it some other city. Let's say Tokyo. So Tokyo is not matching with the any case statement. So it should say no flights. Okay, so you can try on multiple case statements. Remember, you can do switch case on integer, you can do switch case on boolean, you can do switch case on one character, you can do switch case on string also. So is it possible to switch case on float variable? So this is interesting. uh, So what happens is switch case on float statement is not possible. Switch case on float number is not possible. So one of the reason for that is the way float data is stored into the memory. So let's say if you say float x equal to let's say 3.6001, or let's say 3.06 f. Float and double numbers are not allowed in switch case statement. So one of the reason is how the float number is stored into the memory and how it is accessed. So in some of the hardware and software platform, what happens is 3.6 will be stored as 3.6 multiple times 0 and 1, or sometimes it might be stored as 3.599999. So if you see both the numbers, those are approximately same but not exactly same, and this could be a reason that why float numbers are not applicable for switch case statement, and technically this is not even required. Most of the times you might be doing switch case on integer or string only. let's see this control statements. Yeah, so continue statement also we'll see in a bit. Yeah, so looping or loops. So let's say we have some kind of an array and we want to process those. Let's say we have a list of employees. We have a list of all the employee IDs and we want to process the salary of all the employees. So what we do is we process each and every element in the array using some kind of a loop. So we have three kind of loops here which are very popular: for loop, while loop, and do while loop. Now, for loop also has two things, two variants: traditional and enhanced. So let's see this. So what is this is a simple for loop. Uh, Here what we are doing is, so for loop is we need to start at some position, we need to do some condition check, and we need to have some exit criteria. So in the for loop, there are three things here. One is the initialization of basic elements, then some condition check, and exit criteria statement. So what will happen is this will do an iteration of some values here, and it will go inside the for loop and it will do some operation, and once the exit criteria is met, it will come out of the for loop. So what will happen is, let's say I have a variable called as index and I'm doing a condition check here. So if it is this statement is true, it will come inside the for loop, it will print this statement, and at the end the exit criteria statement will be executed. So this will print the numbers from 0 to 5. Okay, now an example of reverse printing. So you just have to play with the index. So you start with 5 and you check whether it is greater than or equal to 0 and you decrement. So remember, this is a postfix operator. So postfix operator are kind of one of the favorite operators in Java. It will be used very, very frequently. Now let's see this one. So start index changed. So what is the start index? So I'm starting. So in all other statements, right, I have started with either 0 or the minus or the 5. But if you see here, I can start with any custom index number, and I can compare it, and I can also have an exit criteria. So in this case, what is happening is I am starting with -5 and I am printing all the way onto +5. So here if you see, it is 0 to 5, here it is 5 to 0, but here I can have for from any starting index to any ending index, right, provided the condition should match here. Okay, so this will print from -5 to +5, right? So this is an enhanced for loop. So if you see here, this is a simple for loop, right? Exam subjects, and you have some this is a string array, you have 4 elements here. So if you see in this for statement or any kind of a for statement, uh, we have initialization, we have condition check, and we have incrementing operator. So this sometimes you can avoid, or sometimes you have a little beautiful way of accessing the element. So you can say string one subject and this colon operator and the name of the array. So what will happen is internally it will be looping like this only, like initialization and um, uh, comparison and then index. So I mean exit criteria. Now here there is nothing like this. So this is basically little enhanced way of writing the for loop, and kind of looks very elegant. Now this also will give you, will iterate from 0, first, second, third, those kind of indexing. But there is an advantage and there's a disadvantage. So what is the disadvantage? If you see here, uh, in this statement, right? So here we can change the starting index, right? Or we can play with the index here. We can increment by +2 also, right? We can decrement by, let's say, 3 also. But so playing with the index is not possible in the enhanced for loop. Okay, that is the major difference between the enhanced for loop and the normal for loop. Now if you see this example here, we can do reverse print also, right? We can do minus minus also here, but here there is nothing like that. So you cannot do a reverse printing using the enhanced for loop. Okay, so that is also one of the difference. So but then you might say that why we need this kind of a enhanced for loop. So if you see for day-to-day operations, I would say 80-90% of the time you might uh, always want to increment the counter by 1, and you always want to go in the ascending order. So you always start with 0 and end at the last index, and you increment by +1. So that is what it is happening here, and that is why this is also supported in Java. Okay, so let me just run it. Right, so if you see, this is ascending order from 0 to 5, reverse order. Yeah, this is with any custom starting index and ending index, and this is how you access using enhanced for loop. Right, so now let's see some break statement and continue statement. So what is a break statement? It will break the immediate condition check or immediate looping basically immediate loop. So break statement, right? So this is basically an ascending order uh, iteration using for loop. So if you see here what is happening, it is starting with index 0 and it is checking whether it is less than 5 is condition check. So it will say before 0. Now it is a condition check here. So if index is greater than 3, then it will break. So once this condition is true, it will break the immediate for loop. So this is the immediate for loop, right? Immediate condition or a looping statement. So that will be broken and it will come out of this for loop. So what will happen? It will print before 0, after 0, before 1, after 1, before 2, after 2, before 3. And now if you see here, is 3 greater than 3? That is a false. So it will say after 3. Then it will say before 4, and now 4 is greater than 3, that is a correct, so it will break. So after 4 will not be printed and it will come out of this for loop. Now similarly we have something called as a continue statement. So what is a break statement? It will break the for loop and it will come out of the for loop. What is the continue statement? It is doing slightly reverse. So when you say continue, it will go to the next iteration of the for loop or next iteration of the immediate loop uh, uh, type of loop. Okay, so continue means it will go to the next index. So it will, in this case, what will happen is in this for loop, it will say before 0, after 0, before 1, after 1, before 2, after 2, before 3, after 3, before 4. So this is true. So it will go to the next iteration. It will come here. It will say before 5. It will go to the next iteration and this condition will be false. So it will come out of this for loop. Okay, so let's just run it once. Right. So in the first break statement, if you see before 3, after 3, and then only before 4, and before 4, it will break it. Now let's see the continue statement. So continue statement. So before 0, after 0, up to before 3, after 3, and now before 4 and before 5, before 5. So this after statement will not be executed. Why? Because the continue statement will be used here. Now let's see the continue. Let's see the while type of loop. So while loop is uh, basically kind of a for loop only, but some changes here. So if you see here if you see the earlier one for loop, here there is an initialization, then here there is the condition check and the exit criteria. So in the while loop, what we do is we do the initialization before the while statement, and in the while we just check the condition, and inside the body of while statement, you need to put the exit criteria statement, something which will break the while loop. Sometimes you might want to have an infinite for loop, that is fine, but then as a good practice you should have some exit criteria. So see here what will happen. So index is 0. So index is it will check the condition. If it is less than 7, yes, true, it will come inside the for loop. It will say index is 0. Okay, it will say 0. Then index will be incremented by 1. Okay, again it will go and check if it is less than 7. So like this it will continue. So like this it will print 0 onwards and it will print up to 6. Okay, let's just run it. So there's one more here. Yeah, so we have a do while loop here. So what is a do while loop and what is a while loop? Both are kind of similar, but then there is a slight difference. So if you see, we have this do statements and then we have a condition check in the while. Now what will happen is, let's say if the counter is 0 here, so what will happen is it will execute this state of statements. It will increment the value of count by 1 and it will check the condition. Okay, so in this case the initialization is correct, which is same as while loop. Condition check is there in the while loop, but the exit criteria is in the do body. Okay, do check. Now what is the difference here? So if you see here, let's say my counter value is 22. Okay, my counter value is 22. So what will happen is my counter value is 22. So it will check, it will do the print statement. It will increment by, it will increment it by 1 and then do the condition check here. So what is happening here is this do part will execute at least once anyway. Okay, and if the condition is matching, if it is condition is not matching, it will come out of this while loop. If the condition is matching, it will again go inside the next iteration. Okay, so we need to use do loop, while loop and do while loop very carefully, because of mathematical calculation errors. We might lose some iterations, so we should be very careful. Okay, so I will just make it as 0 and let's run it again. Right. So in the while loop, the first while loop, it has printed from 0 to 6, and in the second while loop also it has printed from 0 to 6. Okay. Now let's make it as, let's say, 22. Okay, and let's run it again. Right. So in the do while loop, what has happened is it is printed this value as 22. Okay, and it is incremented by 1, and when the condition is not matching, 23 is not less than 7, so it will come out of the while loop, but it has at least executed this do loop at least once. Same thing is not possible in the while loop. It will first it will check the condition. If the condition is not matching, it will not go inside the while. Right. So as an assignment, you can try out like, write a for loop to print alternate numbers from an array. So here what you need to do is you need to just play with the index part. Uh, Write a for loop to print string array elements with length equal to 4 or more than 4. So what is expected here is, let's say, this for loop, right? So I want to print only the alternate elements. Okay, or let's say I want to print even elements. So how do you do that? Or I want to print the elements whose length is more than 4. Okay, so you can have some simple logic on that. Inside the for loop, you can put some logic like the length of the string is more than this, then you print it, otherwise you don't print it. So you can use break or continue statement as well. Right, so now one more special topic. So enum. Enum is a special type of data which is a collection of constants. It improves safety when dealing with only limited set of values. Okay, so see here the enum concept here. So this is how you declare enums. So this you can say a kind of an array, but then the elements you cannot change and that will remain as it is. No, it's basically constant kind of thing. So you have this exam result, right? So you have grade, so distinction, first class, second class, pass and fail. So how do you create, how do you use the enum? So you need to create an instance, or you need to use basically kind of a variable declaration, result r. So this is the enum result r equal to this dot the particular enum. Now remember, you cannot change the enum value, it will be as it is. Okay, or even if you want to assign a value to it, you can assign a custom value to it. That is not a problem. So if I say system out parental R, it will say pass. Okay, it will print this one. Yeah, again the same thing. So to string will give you the string for this. Now you can say enum dot value of a particular element. So let's say you have this string. So what is the value of this string here? So that way you can also get the value also. You can use it inside the if statement. So if you can do it for some condition check, you can use it as a switch case statement also. So enums are also one of the good practice where it's kind of an array, but you don't want to change the contents of this enum. Let's run it. Right, so great pass and all and not fail and all. So that is what is expected. So let's see one more topic. Yeah, so can we add or extend enum elements? So we cannot add anything because once you declare it, that will be final. You cannot add, you cannot extend also. Typecasting. So what is typecasting? A data type is converted into another data type by a programmer using casting operator. So we have something called as casting operator. Let's see an example. Right. So if you see here, now line number 7. So there's an integer, and we want to have the byte value of that integer. So integer has some integer range is more than the byte. So integer I equal to 256, and that we want to convert it into less range. So let's say we want to convert it into byte. So you can do this, let's say like this in bracket. So this is basically called as a casting operator. So you want to cast it to some other data type. Similarly, converting a float to byte. So float is a big number. It is having more range, and byte is just 1 byte, 8 bits. So how do you convert it? Using again this thing, uh, um, um, typecasting operator or casting operator. This is how you can compare a double number to float number. So basically you are reducing the range. Okay, so double is this thing, and using float typecasting, you can convert it into the other type of data. So typecasting, this is called as a typecasting. Let's just run it. Right, so if you see, the value of I is 256, but the value of B is basically 0. So basically the range is reduced. Okay, so byte can store from -128 to +127. Same thing for float. So float to byte. So float is this, byte is this, and converting a double. So double, I have printed the double here, D, that is 199, and I am converting that to byte. So it is a different value. Okay, but it is typecasting, but it is a different value. So when you do typecasting, there might be data loss. Okay, so same thing here. Let's say this is having a higher range and this is having a lower range, so that will be auto typecasted. So uh, that is uh, um, that is one of the drawback by using typecasting. But if the value is within the range of byte, okay, then it is still okay. So that's it for this session. Let's continue our discussion with some other topic in the next session. Thank you.